Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this random Scream Factory movie review video as part of my May series where I'm taking a look at several different titles, horror movies from my Scream Factory collection that I have not yet watched or reviewed up on my channel. So that's kind of what this series is all about for May here. So the first movie I picked, you'll probably think wasn't very random as it starts with an A, alphabetical, but I'm not going to go in alphabetical order or anything like that. I'll be jumping around, so you don't have to worry. But we are going to take a look at from 1988, American Gothic. So this is a movie I had never seen before. It's a first time watch for me. I've had it in my Scream Factory collection for probably about a year now, and I've heard a few things about it, mostly good. Um, and it's a very unique slasher film. I can say that, and that's for some people that's going to be good, and for some people that's going to be bad. We'll get into that in my review, but let's start with the setup, the premise, and the cast for this movie, American Gothic from 1988. So, American Gothic is a 1988 slasher film directed by John Hugh, and the film poster is obviously a takeoff on the Grant Wood painting of the same name, American Gothic, that most people are familiar with. This was a Canadian movie. It was filmed in Canada, British Columbia, I believe. So the movie opens with Cynthia, who's traumatized by the death of her baby after leaving him in a bathtub where he accidentally drowns. She and five of her friends, Jeff, Rob, Lynn, Paul, and Terry, decide to go on vacation. They take a plane somewhere but are plagued by engine troubles and are forced to have a water landing on a lonely, deserted island. The six set up camp, and the next morning, Paul stays at the camp while the others set off to find help. They come upon a large cottage nestled in the woods. After entering the cottage and fooling around a bit, they meet the owners, an elderly married couple going simply by the names of Ma and Pa. The group of friends is welcome to spend the night. At dinner, Lynn starts smoking, and Pa scolds her and demands that she smoke outside. Later, Lynn and Cynthia discover Ma and Pa have a child, Fanny, who looks more like a middle aged woman but claims to be 12 years old. That night, Ma and Pa set down more strict rules, such as no cussing and forcing the girls and boys apart to prevent premarital sex. So that's the setup and the premise for American Gothic. As far as the cast goes, of course, we have Rod Steiger as Pa, Yvonne DiCarlo as Ma, Sarah Torgov as Cynthia, Janet Wright as Fanny, Michael J. Pollard as Woody, William Hootkins as Teddy, Mark Erickson as Jeff, Caroline Barkley as Terry, Mark Lindsay Chapman as Rob, Fiona Hutchinson as Lynn, and Stephen Shellen as Paul. So yeah, that's to set up the premise and the cast for American Gothic. By the way, guys, if I pause at any point, it's because I still have shit in my head from a cold that I'm trying to get over. So if I still have to blow my nose or clear my throat, that's why. But anyway, moving on to the review. As I said, this is a very unique slasher movie, especially from the 80s. It doesn't really fit in with the other 80s slasher movies, particularly that of the early 80s, movies like My Bloody Valentine or Friday the 13th and others. Um, and for some people, like I said, that's a good thing. And for some people, that's a bad thing. I'll let you know at the end of this review what I think. But it is unique. There's no question about that. It's kind of in a category all its own. So, my thoughts on American Gothic, starting with the things I liked about it or the pros. You've got to start with the family that we're introduced to on this island, the crazy family. I think the characters and how well they're written and how well they're performed, particularly performed well by Rod Steiger, Yvonne DiCarlo, Michael J. Pollard, and Janet Wright. I think those four really give this movie a lot of gravitas and a lot of legitimacy, believability in their performances. And as I said, the characters of the family are really well written. Um, I also think the main character of Cynthia had a really interesting backstory, and of the protagonist characters, this group of young 20-something friends. Certainly, her character had the most depth and the most story to go along with it. And I thought Sarah Torgov played her pretty well. Now, again, how good of a job she did of acting versus how well the character was written. It's probably a balancing act, but I thought she still did a good job with the character, even though I do think the character is really well written and well fleshed out with the backstory. I bring that up just to be fair to the other friends and the young 20 somethings, which who obviously didn't have much given to them in terms of the writing or any sort of characterization. They're just kind of the standard characters. Um, obviously she's going to come across better because she had a lot more to do with her character. So I'm just putting that out there. um, let's see. I really liked the fact that the A story of the movie that's introduced at the beginning, or actually I guess the B story that's introduced at the beginning, really wraps up well with the A story at the end of this movie. In other words, the beginning of this movie and the end of this movie really tie out well, and it really has a unique and interesting resolution. Um, the B story, of course, being um, this baby of Cynthia's dying, drowning in the bathtub, versus the A story, which we get for the majority of this movie. It's really wrapped up in a nice, creepy little bow, in my opinion. I thought they did a good job with that. As I said, Rod Steiger gives a really strong performance that's believable, and it really makes me wonder what he's doing in a movie like this. Come to find out, he had some depression issues in the 80s, and so he was more of a mainline film star in the 60s and 70s and into the 80s, and then his depression issues, it kind of took him away from being like a mainline A actor, and that's the reason why he was in more B movies later on in his career, like this one, because he really still gives a really strong performance that does question why he's in a movie like this and why he's not in a mainline Hollywood movie. But as I said, those depression issues played into that. But he's really awesome in this movie. I really like the island setting and the isolation that went along with it in this movie. It's very effective. I mean, the characters really are trapped. When I say the characters, I'm talking about the friends group that flies and gets trapped on this island, because they really are trapped on this island with their plane having engine trouble and not having there be any boat or any way to get off this island. They really are kind of stuck, and this family really has domain over them in a lot of ways because there's no one else on the island. There's no way for them to get off the island, frankly. So that's a really good horror point in this movie is the setting and that isolation and them being trapped. I think the overall atmosphere and tone of this movie was really fun and creepy. It has some dark humor. It has an unsettling score, which I thought was effective to go along with the overall tone of this movie. Um, yeah, those are things that really stood out to me. To very much a pro. This is a slasher movie with more meat on its bone than we typically get on a slasher movie. This movie has a lot of themes and issues of past trauma, generational conflict and differences, religious extremism, and characters making choices to live in the past, basically, or in a simpler, less contaminated time, as they would say. There's just a lot here. There's a lot on the bone. Like I said, in a lot of slasher movies, especially in the 80s, you just don't really get. So I really credit the movie for having those themes and making this movie more than just your 80s slasher movie that we've come to know at this point. I really like the ending of this movie as well. How our final girl, Cynthia, doesn't quite resolve. She resolves things, but not in the way that we've seen other final girls resolve things. She kind of has to. I don't want to give too much away, as this, for the most part, a spoiler-free review, but she kind of has to beat this family at their own game, if you will. I'll leave it at that, as opposed to just resolving things in a well thought out, sane kind of way, but really, really joining them at their own game and being better at it. In essence, I guess is the best way to say it. I thought that was very unique, very interesting, and different for a slasher movie and a horror movie in general. What we come to expect with our final girl. So, yeah, those are my pros for this movie. Like I said, a very unique and interesting slasher movie with more meat on the bone. Those are the biggest positives I can say for it. As far as getting into cons go, this is where it's not going to work for everybody. If you're a gore hound, if you're somebody that wants to see kills and all the gore that goes along with it, this ain't going to be your slasher movie. There are a lot of cutaway, off-camera kills in this movie. Now, how much that was intended and how much the censors came in and made it that way because I know in the late '80s, just like with Friday the 13th Part 7 and Friday the 13th Part 8 and Nightmare on Elm Street 5, I know the censors were doing their thing at that time to really take away from slasher movie and R-rated horror movies as it relates to gore and violence on screen. So I don't know with this movie if they never intended to make it that bloody or gory, or if the censors came in and did it. But for a slasher movie, the kills really aren't the best in a violent, on-screen, gory kind of way, and that's going to hurt this movie for a lot of people that are more gore hounds that basically want to watch a slasher movie for the on-screen kills and the gore. This movie just doesn't really have it. It does have a lot of kills in the movie throughout, but like I said, a lot of them are done off screen. They don't. There's a little bit of blood and gore, but not a whole lot. So that's going to turn off some people. Most of the protagonist characters, aside from Cynthia, aka the friends, are really poorly written. They're bad characters in the sense that they're not likable at all. Now, I know in a lot of slasher movies, you're going to get a lot of poorly written characters and just people that are thrown on screen basically for kill fodder, to be honest about it. And that's certainly the case with these characters, but they're also bad characters in that they're not likable at all. I mean, you don't root for any of these characters other than Cynthia to a certain extent, but there's no character depth to any of these friends or any reason for us to care about them. I mean, right, basically they're assholes from the beginning of the movie all the way to when they meet their demise, if they meet their demise. They're doing things in somebody else's house that they intruded in, by the way, that you just wouldn't do. Just their what they say and how they act, and yeah, they're so unlikable. Even for '80s slasher movies, there's been more likable bad characters, if you will, poorly written characters that were still more likable than this group. So that was definitely a con. One of the characters stays behind with the plane only to turn up dead towards the end of the movie. I don't understand the point of that character at all. I don't know why they were in this movie. I don't know if this actor had problems with, and so they basically like kind of wrote around them and said, okay, you won't be in the movie that much, or if it was part of the plot. It really doesn't make any sense to me. I thought it was one of the weaker points of the movie to have this character just stay back with the plane and only show up as a dead body later on. I mean, what was the point of this character? The fact that none of the friends went back to let him know that they're staying with this family for like 2 days. I mean, it's an island. It's not like they had to go that far to tell them. That just didn't make any sense for to me. I don't think it works in the movie very well. Yeah, I don't get that part. That was one of the weakest parts of the movie to me. For an '80s slasher, the movie does take a while to get going too, in terms of being a slasher with kills, chases, stuff like that. You do kind of have to stick with it for the first half hour or so, where we kind of have some setup going on. We have some, just hanging out with these characters, this group of friends. So it's not, again, it goes back to the people that are into gore. If you're somebody that wants kills right off the bat and a slasher right off the bat, you're probably going to be disappointed by this movie. You're going to have to wait for at least 30 to 40 minutes in. Then, as I said, there are a lot of kills in this movie, but again, they're off screen and there's not a lot of gore in this movie. So that's going to turn some people off, as I said. And then my only other con, and it's not so much a con, but something that I wanted from the movie that I didn't get, is the fact I would have liked a little bit more backstory on the family, like how these crazies came to be together. Are these three siblings really their sons and daughters of Ma and Pa, or did they just stumble upon this island and then went insane as well and basically played their part? You know what I mean? It's just I would have liked to just a little bit more backstory, not a lot, because I like the fact that when we get our antagonists, our bad guys, if you will, I don't want to have everything spoon fed to me, but it would have been nice to have a little bit more idea of how they came to be, like a I don't know. And then there's just some other plot conveniences too, like how has this family been alive? How have these two specifically apparently lived on this island for years? And don't want to leave and don't want their siblings to leave, or their sons and daughters to leave to be contaminated, as they put it. What the hell are they living on there? I mean, are they just living on people that stumble upon the? Because they're not really cannibals. That's not really shown in the movie. Um, it's not like they have wheat fields and stuff. I do know the Pa goes hunting once in a while, but How do they not? How can there be so many animals on this island that they're able to live for perceivably 20 or 30 years? So those are some small things, but they are some plot contrivances and conveniences that the movie used. But overall, guys, that's what that wraps up my cons. Overall, guys, this is a really interesting and unique slasher film, and I think there's enough here that I like it certainly more than I don't, especially led by these two world class actors, in my opinion. That gives it more gravitas than your typical '80s slasher. Like I said, not all the acting's great in the movie. The friends minus Cynthia are not great. Um, some uneven acting there. But I think the fact that there's more going on with this movie than just your straight up guy in a mask going around and slicing and dicing empty characters. I think makes this a very unique movie that I'm happy to have in my Scream Factory collection. And I'm going to give this movie a solid 7.5 out of 10. Again, it's not your typical slasher. If you're looking for gore and kills from the jump, you're going to be disappointed. But if you're interested in more of a psychological slasher movie and you're willing to give it a chance, then I would definitely recommend this movie. Check it out. Like I said, there's some better acting than you'll get in other slasher movies. And it's very unique. And like I said, there's a lot of meat on the bone, the slasher bone here in this movie, with those themes of past trauma, generational conflict, and living in the past, living in the 1920s, basically, as this family is, and very interesting and a very solid end to the movie as well, and how our main character, our final girl, if you will, comes to resolve things. So 7.5 out of 10 for American Gothic. I'm happy to have it in my Scream Factory collection. It's definitely it's going to be a rewatchable film for me. And yeah, I had a very positive experience with American Gothic, having never seen it before. So it'll be interesting to see if my thoughts change on rewatch or not. I don't think they're going to, but we'll see. So go ahead and comment down below for you guys if you've seen American Gothic, if what your thoughts are on it, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, why not? Please like please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming review videos for this series. And please be sure to subscribe to my channel as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content. Not only this series, but what I have coming out beyond it. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review and stay scared. Bye.